Hi, welcome to Tekolamo once again. In this segment, we are going to talk about the architecture of melody in African music. Melody in African music is fundamentally shaped by the linguistic structure and communal musical logic instead of just aesthetic principles for creating melody or guidelines for creating melodies as we see in the Western art. This session bridges the philosophical foundation laid in the last session where we talked about music as a social event. In this session, we are going to delve deep into the whys, the how, why our melodies sound the way it sounds, and why our melodies always make us want to rise from our chairs and dance. We are going to talk about melody as a linguistic fact. Last time we discussed melody as a social event. In Africa, we do not focus on fixed guidelines for creating melodies. Instead, we examine how and why melodies sound the way they do. These characteristics, we are going to study them, we are going to discuss them in terms of factors that lead to or make our melodies sound special or sound different to why they are. We are going to group them just by musical cultures. Generally, they are not going to cover the whole Africa, but we are going to group them to common musical cultures in Africa. These cultures include the language. Many African languages are tonal language. When we say tonal language, we just mean a word does not have a meaning unless spoken. If I may use direct words of our Professor Nyakiti, now retired, he used to say, when I write for you a word, it does not have a meaning unless it is spoken. And he used to give an example of a word in the Luo language, Luo community from Kenya. Say that is, the word is kendo. Kendo has three different meanings. You can use it, say kendo. Kendo is again. You can say kendo. Kendo is the fireplace. You can say kendo. Kendo is marriage. The difference is just the intonation. Does it have a falling intonation? Does it have a rising intonation? Look back to your community and your language and tell me in the comment section, does the intonation affect the meaning of your word, or the meaning of that particular word? Here in Africa, it does a lot. We can just get an example, for example, in a song when, for example, I sing, Adwaro kendo, kendo, adwaro kendo, kendo, ni yawa ni kendo yeliet, yawa ni nadwaro kendo, ni kendo. That song, I talk about three different kendo. The first one is Adwaro kendo, kendo, from the word kendo, I want to marry. Kendo, from the word kendo, again. So I want to marry again. Adwaro kendo, kendo, I want to marry again. E kendo yelie, the fireplace is so hot. And this is a man complaining that he has to marry again because the fireplace is so hot. So you realize that the difference in intonation brings the difference in how the meaning of that particular word. This one is so close to prosody in Western music. Prosody is where it's a technique. In Western music, it is not now a must that you use it. It's just a technique where the melody follows the direct speech rhythm and speech intonation. Again, we have to differentiate this from recitative, which is speech like singing, not a compositional technique, but just a form of a style of singing. When such languages are sung, the direction of the melody must follow the natural speech. Therefore, the melody emerges from the language itself. You are not sitting down to create the melody. The melody is already inherent in that particular language, and this is what we call the text setting as we flow with it. The next factor is the scale system. In Africa, we don't generally use the diatonic scale, the 7 notes diatonic scale. Instead, some communities use hexatonic scale, that's a 6-note scale. Some community like the Gikuyu community from Kenya uses the pentatonic scale, which is a 5-note scale. And you realize in this we will not have a semitone somewhere. We'll have the intervals to just be tone, then we have 1.5. Perhaps this is the reason why our music sometimes sounds unresolved in some ears that are trained to Western music. Because now you're trying to listen and getting where we have the semitone resolution, but now for us, we don't have Tido, we don't have Fami. Our music will end in its own way. It sounds somehow hanging to some here. Another factor is the accent placement. One of the mostly spoken linguistic group in Africa is the Bantu language. The Bantu and its subgroup languages. And in this, for example, the Swahili and even other Bantu languages, you'll find that the accent is always placed in the second last syllable, the penultimate syllable. And this usually finds itself in the first beat of the bar. This will discuss it when we'll be talking about the architecture of rhythm, but for now we just talk about how it structures our melody. It gives our melody a structure, it gives our melody a kind of timeline and the motion. As we conclude, I'll just leave you with a quote, and I'll say, the African composer doesn't merely set music to words. Instead, he reveals the music already inherent in the words. Thank you for joining this journey of African musicology. In the next video, we'll be talking about the architecture of rhythm in African melody. See you on the other side. Goodbye.